Dougal. Now, Dougal, why are you here?
Well, I suppose I'm here because I am disabled. To cut a long story short, I have a nerve condition that basically means I have an insensitivity to pain. And because of that, I've done some pretty serious damage to the joints in my legs. Basically, I've walked on injuries that I didn't know I had and have really mucked up the joints in my leg in quite a serious way. Now, if because of that, I can still walk a bit, I can still hobble around a bit, but when I'm out and about day to day, I primarily use a wheelchair, as that tends to make my life a lot easier. And although I have an insensitivity to pain, I still feel pain. So it makes my life a lot less painful, and basically I can get around a lot more than without it. But obviously that gives me a sort of slightly different perspective on the world around us, I suppose.
And you've come to a lot of events, and of course, none of us own our own venue. We end up using other people's venues, and the world is actually not incredibly accessible, is it?
No, I think one of the things that's like any experience, if you haven't had that experience, it's very difficult to understand or comprehend how that can be, and that applies to me as much as for anyone else. So as a wheelchair user, the kind of day-to-day experiences of, every pavement I go down is a challenge. I have to constantly think about the surface, the angle of the pavement, where the crossing is, all this kind of stuff. And that applies to venues as well. Getting around a pub or a restaurant, the chairs, the tables, the width of the corridor, the width of a door, how you open a door, how you close a door, all extra things, extra complications that you have to think about and take into account, and provide an extra challenge for someone running an event or managing a venue. Now, obviously, I've had a particular experience as a quite an active wheelchair user, but obviously, if you're deaf or blind or have a different physical condition or have a condition even as a wheelchair user, that you could have a completely different level of accessibility need. So it is a real challenge to cater for all those, but it's certainly a broad spectrum out there to deal with.
And as event organisers, it's really challenging to find accessible venues. Totally. If we can't do it, are there things that we can do? Do you think? That are at least helpful, other than to show that we've at least given a shit,
I mean, I think that most people, in my experience of disability, if they have a disability themselves or an access need themselves, then they're usually pretty realistic about the limitations of that. So, for example, as a wheelchair user, I understand that, they're probably not going to be able to put a lift in, I don't know, an Elizabethan manor house, for example. That's probably not going to happen. So I accept that. That's fine. I don't expect them to be able to, adapt every single space. And I think most people are pretty realistic. I think the most important thing as an event organizer is, and I kind of use this advice in general because I do get asked this question on a semi-regular basis, is basically to ask and listen. As I say, if you haven't had that experience, you're probably not going to have an understanding, and actually very small things can make a very big difference. So the best policy, in my opinion, is that if you know someone who's coming to one of your events, say has an accessibility need, ask them what information they want and listen to that. And it may well be that you need to take some photos or do some measurements, or go and ask the venue some questions, find out whether there's someone at the venue who deals with this and what they've done in the past to mitigate or to enable access for people. But yeah, the sort of key fundamental thing is to ask and listen and to understand that every person and every access need can be different, and even really small things. Asking a venue, say, for example, if they have a ramp, that's very useful, but not all ramps are made equal, let's put it that way. And I've turned up to places where, you know, they have a ramp, but then you have to pull a door open, or it's a ramp that's like that, and is somewhat deafy. So it's, I would say, if you have an opportunity to find out what their needs are, and then either put them in contact with the venue or go to the venue yourself and maybe take some pictures, take some measurements, but again, ask them what they need to know and then action that. That's the sort of guiding principle.
Do you tell people you have a need before you come? And how can we encourage people to let us know so that we can make changes? Because I think that's the other issue, isn't it? Which is, if people feel uncomfortable about sharing that, they might just absent themselves to begin with. There needs to be some positive signals that come that say, you know, if you have a need, then please feel free to share that with us.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've certainly in the past felt more uncomfortable about expressing that, and it's been one of my sort of journeys that I've been on, you know, partly after getting sober, and also partly just sort of as an adult, is learning to be more forthwith with that information and making my needs known. And now I have a pretty good handle on, pretty good understanding of what I can and can't do and what works and what doesn't. So quite often, if I know I'm going somewhere, I'll check it out myself, because I know what I need to ask and I understand what will work and what won't work for me. And I think a lot of people are quite good independently of understanding what their needs are. But yeah, I mean, I know we've had conversation when I'm into an event where you've asked me if I've needed anything or whatever, and sometimes I say no, I'm fine, and I'll check it out myself, or otherwise I might ask. But yeah, it is a tricky one. I think, generally speaking, if you know someone is coming with an accessibility need, just check in with them. They most of the time will be absolutely fine with that, in my experience. But yeah, just asking them a sort of direct question, if you need anything, what would be helpful to know about the venue, that sort of thing should suffice. But it is tricky because, yeah, as you say, some people do feel uncomfortable being forthcoming with that.